Hey everyone, this is Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, and you can ask me anything. Today's topic is on the issue of redistricting. I asked you to send me your questions and your comments on what you think about redistricting, and we're going to answer those today, so let's get to it. Question number 1 comes from Adam Assen in Carmel. He says, one of the common arguments for mid-decade redistricting is that other states like California or Illinois do it. But my thought is, 2 wrongs don't make a right, which is in the Bible several times. So how do you reconcile this? Well, Adam, thanks for your question. First of all, 2 wrongs don't make a right is not actually in the Bible, so that's the first issue. Secondly, it's not really wrong to redistrict mid-decade. It's not an ethical issue, it's just how states have normally done it. We can do it here in Indiana. Gerrymandering's not illegal. States like Illinois do it, states like California do it. The point is we need to play by the rules that other states are playing by, because if we don't play by their rules, we will inevitably get punished as our voice in Indiana is watered down. So that's why I'm for redistricting. Next question comes from Sandra from Fishers. She says, with so much misinformation out there on redistricting, where can I go to find the facts? Well, Sandra, thanks for your question. Absolutely a great point you're making. We actually don't have all of the facts quite yet because we're waiting to see the maps that will be drawn. I think a lot of people are saying, we want to see the maps. What are we voting on? Which is a fair argument. We don't want our senators and our reps to vote on something they haven't seen or to commit to vote for something they haven't seen. But in order to get the information, we need the Senate in place to do the job. We need the House to come back to do the job of actually getting us the maps and the bill. Once we have that, then we can debate it. So great question. We need that information, and we will get it if the House and the Senate show up December 1st, like the governor asked them to do their job. Our next question comes from Chuck Barony. Chuck says, what does the Indiana Constitution say about mid-decade reshuffling of the deck to redistrict? Well, Chuck, thank you for your question. That's a great point. It is in the Constitution and in a statute that says that the legislature must draw a new district or the district lines after the census, and that is the minimum requirement that the Constitution gives. It's not a prohibition that they can't come back mid-decade to change the lines. If there's a problem and it comes out later, we expect that the legislature would have the ability and the authority to come back and redraw at any point. Our next question comes from Kat Livingood. Kat says, poll after poll after poll shows you what the people want, and it's not redistricting. Explain to us why you're pushing so hard to do something we've said we don't want when you work for us. Well, it's a great question, Kat. Let's talk about the polls. The polls in 2016 said that Hillary was a shoo-in to win the presidency. In 2024, the polls said that the swing states were a toss-up, and they weren't for sure going to go to any one candidate, and they all went for Trump pretty handedly. In 2024, the polls said that Governor Braun and I were pretty much a statistical dead heat with our competitor on the Democrat side, and we ended up winning by double-digit percentage points. This is a common misconception that when polls come out, people think that they are somehow scientifically accurate, and there's all kinds of polls. I can show you polls where 69% of Hoosiers say they want redistricting. We've seen that poll that's come out recently. There's also another poll that I saw one of our state senators say, he said that there's 93% of his constituents don't want redistricting. That is a statistical impossibility. That cannot be the case. And so when you're saying the polls say, well, what poll are you looking at? How did they create the poll? What was the wording of the poll? How was it asked? There's a lot of things that go into a poll, and you can make a poll pretty much say and determine anything you want it to say. So be very careful to just say the polls say people don't want it, because I can show you where the polls say people do want it. Our next question comes from Kristen Bizantz up in the northeast part of the state. Kristen says, what could happen if Indiana does redistrict? What could happen if Indiana does not redistrict? Has there been a credible survey of more than 10 people in Indy about this? Well, Kristen, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of things still up in the air. We've heard people say, well, if we redistrict, it could really hurt us, or it could help us. It could move the ball towards the Republicans or the Democrats one way or the other. I think that's still up in the air. I think ultimately what's going to matter is people are going to have a message that they believe in, and we're going to have to see voter turnout in either camp. whoever does that the best in 2026, regardless of redistricting, is probably going to be the side that does better. So this is not we're padding the numbers so 2026 goes our way. To me, redistricting is all about making sure that we push back on states like Illinois, California, and the New England states that have been for years padding their numbers, drawing their lines in a nefarious way so that they can steal our voice from Washington. Really, that's the principle of the matter. That's why I'm so pro redistricting. It's because people are stealing Indiana's voice in Washington. Our next question comes from Debbie Hawkins. Debbie says, I do hope you will push forward with redistricting because the Democrats will do it to gain more seats in the House and Senate. Well, Debbie, that's a great point, and I actually agree with that. I think the Democrats will do whatever they can when they are in power to squash the other side. We saw it just in the last couple of years. Look at the impeachment facade and charade and kangaroo courts that they put Donald Trump through. It was complete bogus. There was no there, and yet they made up all the Russia hoax stuff. They pushed all of this narrative that there was a January 6th insurrection that Trump incited, which now we're realizing is not even close to being the truth. And so, yes, Democrats will use whatever mechanisms they can use to squash the other side if they're in power. This is the misconception on the right that somehow if we play nice to them, they'll play nice to us. They don't. All right, our next question comes from Mike Papinchak. Mike says, why do you support a communist version of government? Are you a communist, Beckwith? Well, thanks, Mike. I'm actually not a communist, but you know who is a communist? A guy who just got elected out in New York City to be their next mayor. The Democrat Party is moving dangerously close to becoming a full-on communist party. We're seeing it in places like Seattle, places like New York, places like Minneapolis, and we are all over the country watching the party of JFK that fought against the communists now wants to be the party of the communists. This is a really bad day for America when the Democrat Party embraces communism as passionately as they are doing right now. So we need to watch out for that side of the party. Next up, we have Lisa Crosswhite. Lisa asks, why don't you follow California's lead and let your constituents vote on redistricting? Lisa, that's a great question. I get this a lot. Why don't we have ballot initiatives and ballot issues where the voters can actually directly weigh in on each individual issue? The reason I'm against this in Indiana is because that's actually called direct democracy. And that's what the founders didn't want. The founders were very concerned that the passions of the people were going to be untempered and they would lead us off the cliff of chaos. When you put issues on the ballot, you are going right through a direct democracy. We're not a direct democracy. We are what we call a constitutional republic. You get to elect representatives to go down to do the business and deal with the issues by making law to address those issues. Next up, we have Kevin Dean. Kevin asked, how will an Indiana redistricting attempt that creates a 9-0 GOP map avoid a challenge in federal court? Great question, Kevin. Well, actually, I think that's exactly what should happen. I would love to see the federal courts weigh in. The Supreme Court really needs to do its job and to make every state play by the same rules. I hope what's happening with these redistrict battles that are happening all over the country right now, it will force the hand of the Supreme Court to be the referee and say every state has to play by these rules. All I'm asking for, and all Indiana is asking for, is that we play by the same rules that other states are playing by. Next up, we have Bob Hutt. Bob asks, is there any parliamentary procedure that will get these weak-kneed rhinos out or neutralized? Well, Bob, thanks for that question. We are seeing some very concerning issues when it comes to the Senate that they aren't very bold. They aren't coming back to do their job. That's the biggest issue I have right now. The governor called them back for a special session, and now we're seeing that they won't come back. I think that's the bigger issue. We've got to get them back. There are some parliamentary procedures that we're looking into to call them back to get a roll call. We'd like to put them on record that who showed up to do their job. If they want to vote no for redistricting, great. Have at it. Be able to defend it, but be public and transparent about where you stand. We don't like this hiding under the shadows of darkness approach that the Senate's taking right now. So yes, we are looking at parliamentary procedures, and I think we will be able to get them back in for a vote very soon. Next question comes from Laura Liu. Laura asks, why do you think that our population has shifted significantly since 2020 to justify redistricting? That's a great question, Laura. Well, what's happened over the last 4 to 5 years is we've seen an influx of illegal immigrants into our nation like never before. Some estimates say we have about 20 million people that have come across our borders illegally. When you count a population, you can't have an accurate count when you have plus or minus 20 million. That's a big deal. And so it is right for us in the mid-decade to go back and redistrict based on the accurate census numbers that are not counting illegal immigrants. They don't deserve to be counted when it comes to congressional representation. And so we need to do the right thing and have an accurate picture of who really deserves congressional representation in the state of Indiana. Next up, we have Nelson Smiley. Nelson asks, my question is, I cannot reconcile how a man of your moral character can advocate and champion around Mr. Trump and his seemingly lack of moral character, and by extension advocate to give him more congressional power through redistricting. This is a sincere question and not sarcasm. Well, Nelson, I appreciate that question. I see the sincerity in your question, and I get that question quite a bit, to be honest with you. Well, all throughout world history, we've seen God use imperfect people to do things to accomplish his perfect will. If you want to hold Donald Trump to the standard of perfection, he's going to fail. I'm going to fail. We're all going to fail. There's no one perfect except for Christ. The problem is sometimes we like to hold our own righteousness up as the standard. And I'm going to tell you right now, even your righteousness isn't very good. Mine's not very good. Donald Trump's isn't very good. But God can use him to do great things. We see that with King David in Scripture. If you want to hold a mirror of righteousness up to somebody and you hold it up to King David, you would actually see him in jail today based on some of the wicked things he did. However, God still used what he wanted to accomplish through King David. This is my sin isn't as bad as your sin type conversation. I always say when that becomes the conversation, you've already missed the boat. Our next question comes from Chad Welch. Chad asks, how much is it going to cost taxpayers for you to try to provide Republicans with one extra seat in Washington? Well, Chad, that's a great question. Well, you must not have been paying attention to me the last few weeks, because it's not one, it's actually 2 more congressional seats that we're going to get. However, what is it going to cost taxpayers? Well, it's not going to cost them anything more than what it would normally cost to have a session, because we're not actually seeing taxpayer funding for a special session. The way the House and the Senate decided to do this, they said, we're just going to bump up the start of the regular session to December to address this. Next question is from Justin George. Justin says, while the 10th Amendment reserves powers to the states, we would like to know where this could fit in as part of redistricting discussions. God bless, and thank you for taking the time to do this. Hey, Justin, thanks for your question. I really appreciate you. In the 1962 Supreme Court case, Baker v. Carr, the Supreme Court ruled that every state has a duty and an obligation to make sure that equal population is counted amongst the states. And so here's the deal. The 10th Amendment says it is the states' rights to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to protect that here in states like Indiana or any state of the union for that matter. So yes, we have a duty per the Supreme Court, per the 10th Amendment, to make sure that equal representation is maintained and protected. And it has to be transparent, it has to be accurate, and that's why redistricting in mid-decade is really a great step to take to protect the rights of every Hoosier. All right, our last question comes from Sonia Shahan. Sonia asks, I want accurate voting, and I want to make sure we are not allowing anyone to vote that is illegal. I want to make sure our voter rolls are clean. I don't want any way for either side to cheat. So as long as this is done, I will be okay with redistricting. Well, Sonia, I couldn't agree with you more. I think ultimately what every Hoosier is asking for is that we know that we have free, fair, accurate, and transparent elections. That's what redistricting is all about. We need to know who's being counted. That's the big reason for redistricting. We've been counting illegals in our census far too long. It happened overwhelmingly in the last census. We're realizing the mistakes now, a few years later. We should go back and fix it. We also recognize that the other states are doing things to keep Republicans out of their congressional delegation. That's not fair. That's not right. And so in order to stand up to that, we must do the same. This is not a thing of two rights make a wrong. This is how other states are playing the game. It's not unethical to play the game the same way they're playing it. So Sonia, I want free and fair and accurate elections, just like you do, and I hope every person watching can agree with that. Hey, I want to thank everyone who sent in questions. We had hundreds of questions come in. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but this is how we maintain our republic. Engage, ask questions. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep coming to you, answering your questions, making sure that you know where I stand. I want to hear where you stand. And collectively, we're going to make Indiana better. I guarantee it. That's where we're moving. It's going to be a bright future for Indiana for years to come. And remember, don't forget, we're going for 9-0.